Hi, and welcome to Chamber Chat here in the Inside Lowell studios. I'm Danielle McFadden, president of the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. I'm so excited to have our guest on with us today. I have Jean Phelps, CEO of Encompass Human Services.
Thanks, Danielle. It's great to be here.
So good to have you here. So I have a lot of questions for you, but I want to start with you. Can you talk a little bit about your history with the organization?
I would be glad to, even though I hate talking about me. Who does?
I'm going to force you to.
Right. Oh. So I'm coming up on 15 years with Encompass. Started in 2008, and we were a very different organization than we had. Our corporate offices were actually on Lexington Ave in Lowell in the old Pentucket School building, which we had been in since 1964.
Wow.
So this big old wooden school building, and if you actually came up to my office, the stairs would be creak, 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 creak as you came up to the third floor to my mint green office. And that's where corporate offices were, and all of our programs and services were sort of dispersed across Greater Lowell. So our day program was on Middlesex Ave. Our residences were sort of all over the place, and we weren't together under one roof. So I believe it was in 2007 we made the decision to at least put our administrative and corporate offices together with our day programs, and we moved to Mill Road in Chelmsford, and we've sort of been off to the races ever since then. What can I tell you about my experience prior to coming here? I was the CEO for another organization up in the Amesbury area. It was a special education collaborative program. I've been in this field for more years than I want to say right now, because then you'll know. So you'll know exactly. If I tell you how long I've been in this field, you know how old I am. But it's been sort of a lifelong passion, and I've always been sort of touching the periphery of supporting people with disabilities since my high school years. And this wasn't exactly the trajectory I was on when I went to college and I got a degree in psychology, and then I got my graduate degree is in social work. But I knew I didn't want to do the 50-minute hour, and I knew my skills and talents lended me more towards leadership and organizational development, and that's how I ended up here. Did a number of years, actually. I worked for what was the Department of Mental Retardation, now the Department of Developmental Services. So that's stood me in very good stead, because I know sort of both sides of this industry in terms of what happens on the state government side as well as what happens on the private nonprofit side. So here I am, 15 years. I think I'm going to end my career at Encompass, or at least my formal professional career, because we've got some really good years in front of us, and I'd like to see where the organization goes for the next few years.
That's amazing, and I'm glad that you brought up. I didn't realize about how the organization had been in the same building for so many years, because the chamber and our board had the opportunity and the pleasure to tour your building the other day. It's so impressive. We were truly amazed at everything that you had going on under one roof. Can you talk a little bit about Encompass Human Services, and then about LifeLinks and how that kind of happened?
So a brief little bit of history. So we started out in 1954, 1955, as originally the ARC of Greater Lowell, the Association of Retarded Children, and then we became the Association for Retarded Citizens. And we kept that moniker for years and years and years. In 1985, the organization changed its name to LifeLinks. And I think it's because we wanted to sort of recognize the fact that we were more than just serving people with just, at that time, mental retardation, but we were sort of broadening our horizons, and we were sort of changing our focus. When I came along, we were LifeLinks, and we were sort of happily being LifeLinks. And as I said, we needed to move and do some things to sort of bring the organization forward. After we had been on Mill Road in Chelmsford for a while, we quickly we outgrew that space quicker than we thought we did, and there was sort of a period of tremendous growth around our day services and supporting persons during the daytime hours, our family support services, and some of the other offerings. So we moved over to Omniway, literally around the corner, to a building that was we thought was going to be able to really support us and help us grow. And that's the space that we were so glad that you guys
Yes.
got to tour, because you got to see the incredible range of services and support. So we have day habilitation services, which are for people who have really strong habilitation needs, OT, PT, speech, those kinds of needs. We have a community-based day supports program, and that really helps connect people to the greater Lowell community and their home communities, both in terms of employment, pre-employment kinds of activities,
Yep.
as well as socialization, recreation opportunities. We do some employment services out of that building. So it's a real multifaceted building in terms of what we do. And we have a program, a very specific program in there for persons with acquired brain injury who need a formal kind of social and communication avenue for daytime hours. So we're starting to see that building being used in lots of different ways,
Amazing.
which is really great. And then our administrative offices are on the second floor, so we're able to sort of all be under one roof. But that's not all we do. We operate, I'm going to get the number wrong because literally we're adding group homes this week. But I think we're going to be at 19 and
Wow.
shortly 21 group homes
That's amazing.
across the greater Lowell area, predominantly 4 and 5 bed homes for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities of all levels of need, all levels of ability, and again, sort of homes integrated in the community. We provide family support services to families and individuals who live at home in the community. We support people who live independently in the community to make sure they have everything they need, sort of wrapping around their services. So it really is a very comprehensive, if you're a person with an intellectual disability, we have a service for you. And we're starting to expand the population of people we support as well. As I said, we've added brain injury
Yeah,
services
that's
recently.
incredible.
And then services for people who are on the autism spectrum as well. So there's a lot.
When we were taking the tour, there was one gentleman that saw us and he came like bolting across the room, like, who are these people? It was so awesome.
And again,
Yeah.
their willingness to engage and to tell their stories
Yes.
and to be part of this community is so refreshing.
Amazing.
So as we're coming out of the pandemic,
Yes.
and sort of getting our feet back under us in terms of the routines that we've had, those connections are so fun. So I'm glad you got to experience that. 'Cause
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I think
real
that's
life.
exactly
Yeah.
what I think he was like, I'm not either, because, finally all the restrictions have been lifted. So he's
Yep.
like, who are all these people in my house?
Yeah, exactly.
So friendly. It was
Exactly.
really great. So you mentioned your group homes.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a group home is like for people who just have kind of no
Yeah.
idea, or an idea in their head that
Yeah.
is not true?
Yeah. It's interesting because every time we open a group home, one of the things that we like to do, and we haven't been able to do this recently, obviously, because of the pandemic, but part of what we really try to do is make sure that those homes look and feel and are a part of the local community. So oftentimes we'll host like a little open house once we've moved in, and we just kind of open the doors, and we might have a barbecue or just a little snacky buffet spread or whatever. And we invite
Yeah.
people over, come in, meet us. And that's always, I think, an eye-opening experience for the community, because people think, I think people have some really unique ideas about what goes on in a group home. Sometimes they think that there's secure facilities where the doors are locked and people can't leave, and that there's a high level of staff, and that the people who live in homes could potentially pose a risk to the community in terms of, and we've heard this before, that that they may have an offending background, or they may have a criminal background, or they may have a drug background, and that really is really sort of the farthest from the truth. Most of the folks who we support in our group homes, and again, we support people throughout their entire lifespan. So services for folks in our 24-hour group homes start at age 22, and we have residents well into their 80s at this point in time. And some of those folks we've been supporting for 20, 30, 40 years in those homes. And the primary diagnosis is an intellectual disability, what was referred to in the past as mental retardation. And in a nutshell, what it means when you have an intellectual diagnosis, an intellectual developmental disability, it basically means that you learn at a much slower rate than everybody else. You can learn, you do develop skills, but it's a lifelong condition. There's not a magic pill that you can take that's going to cure your intellectual disability. So what we do is we staff those homes with staff to support those folks to continue learning throughout their life. And if you walk into an Encompass group home, for the most part, you will see a home that looks very much like your home or my home. It's just that the people who live in that home aren't related to each other. So everybody has their own bedroom that they get to decorate the way that they want. They pick the colors, they put whatever decor in the room they want. Some of those folks might have a lot of specialized equipment. We serve a lot of folks who are really medically challenged, so people might have special medical equipment, wheelchairs, walkers, standers. Some folks might have a hospital bed. Some folks might have a lot of extra equipment because they might have special machines for G-tube feedings. It sort of depends on the level of need of the individual in terms of what specifically will be in the home. Everybody eats around the dining room table the way that you eat around the dining room table. Staff are either helping the individuals prepare the meals, or depending on the level of need of the individuals, they're working. Staff might be providing the meals, and actually some, depending on the level of need, might be assisting people in terms of getting fed, using the bathroom, taking a shower. Each home creates a routine in terms of what people like and what people don't like. And for the most part, and again, this has changed a bit because of COVID, Monday through Friday, people leave the home during the day. They may be going to a job in the community. They may be going to a day program like the ones that Encompass runs, or there's a bunch of other agencies that do what we do. They may be going out and volunteering in the community. They go to doctors in the community. They go shopping in the community. They do pretty much what you and I do. And there's a lot of what we do on the weekends and at nights. There's a lot of sitting around and watching television, playing games, laughing, talking. Families come to visit. There's barbecues. There's outings out into the community. Hey, let's go to the zoo today. Let's go to the movies. Let's go here. Let's go there. And all of that is planned around the particular learning needs of the individual. So everybody has an annual plan. Everyone has goals that they're working on, because one of the things that we need to make sure we're doing for our folks is that they're continuing to learn and grow as they're with us. So it's interesting, because I think folks think that you're going to go into a group home and you're going to see something that's very rigid and very formal. And actually it feels very much like a family. And one of the cool things about us is we've enjoyed some great staff longevity. And in some of our group homes, we've had staff who've been staff in those homes as long as the individuals have lived there. So sometimes it's 20 plus years that staff have been supporting individuals. So at that point in time, that house is definitely a part of the neighborhood and part of the community.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you for offering that description, because I think it's very eye-opening to folks. That's great. And you're adding more.
We're adding more.
Incredible.
Yep.
So people and families you serve come from Greater Lowell and Greater Lawrence. How would you describe the impact of Encompass to the community? I mean, the group homes.
Right.
That's
so
a huge
you've just heard this.
Yeah.
This is, part of what our mission was back in the 1950s, was to be there for families who didn't have a whole lot of resources and options for their family members at that point in time. So the portfolio of services that we offer and the range of services that we offer because the individuals who we support and their families and guardians are looking for those services. We're not out here offering something that you come along and, you say, hey, can you do this for me? And can you do that for me? What we are doing is in direct response to what those families and individuals are saying they need. Yeah. And obviously our funding, it's weird because most of our funding comes through state government who pays us to provide these services for this population. But we're contracted to provide those services, and we have to make good on our contractual obligations, right? So if we don't provide the right service at the right time with the right amount of support, people are going to get frustrated and angry and need to go someplace else. So our goal is to be there for those families when they need us most. And it's frustrating because sometimes we don't have enough resources, or there's not enough money coming in from the state to support what we want to do, and we might need to go out and do some fundraising for very specific programs. But we've been doing this now for almost 70 years, and I don't see the need going away.
No.
In some instances, it might even be growing. I think the population of persons with autism is going to pose an overall societal challenge until we're sort of welcoming and recognizing those individuals as fully participating members of our communities, regardless of the differences that they have, because it's the differences that make us all unique. If we were all the exact same
Absolutely.
human beings, how boring would society be? So it's our challenge to make sure that uniqueness that we all
Yeah.
bring is acknowledged and recognized. And that's what our goal is at Encompass, and it always has been. So it's sort of implied in our name, Encompass.
Yeah.
We want to encompass everyone in terms of the services and supports we offer.
And you mentioned that you get a lot of your money from government contracts and from the state. What if somebody's watching or listening right now and they're, compelled to help? What are some ways that people from the community can help?
So there's a bunch of ways that you can help. Obviously, I spoke a little bit about our day services and the fact that we try to connect people during daytime hours to the community. So whether that's to provide, to help us with providing a volunteer opportunity or an employment opportunity for the people who we support. We're always looking for jobs in the community that our folks can do so we can expand people's repertoire in terms of their employment skills. We're also looking for opportunities for our folks to go out and volunteer. And some of those things that we had in place fell to the wayside, again, because of COVID.
I'm sure you're
So
rebuilding a lot
we're
of
starting to
things.
rebuild a lot of those relationships. So I think that's really, really important. There are some opportunities to directly volunteer with us. We have some very specific projects and things sometimes that we work on. And it's always nice if someone says, I've got a few hours. Thinking back, we had one person who volunteered in one of our group homes to teach. It was a group home. It was all women, and to teach the women how to knit and crochet. So, like, if you've got a hobby or a skill that you want to share, if you're a painter or an artist, those are the same thing that, I said to my husband the other day, can you please get a hobby? Because you're spending way too much time just like watching
up
TV.
knitting,
And
please.
so just like, we might go searching for a hobby, the individuals who we support, they don't know what they like until they're exposed to something. Maybe it's
Absolutely.
pottery, maybe it's painting, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's whatever. We're always looking for good board members, and if you're looking for if you're looking for a board opportunity, clearly folks can reach out to us, and we would be glad to, support you in that journey. I think that the other thing is that we don't know how things play out until things play out. So sometimes it's the most innocent of conversations that we have with folks that opens up a door and opens up an opportunity for us. So there are a myriad of ways. We're always looking for opportunities for services, supports, and funding to support what we do.
Yep. So I'm sure you take individual and corporate donors.
Yes, yes.
You don't say no to money.
We never say no to money. And even if that money comes with a little bit of string, sometimes it's a way to sort of, again, expand the portfolio in terms of what we have to present to individuals who we're supporting.
Excellent. So last month you had a significant announcement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
So last month we formally announced our affiliation with the Arc of Opportunity in central Massachusetts. They're out of the Fitchburg area, and I've known Mary Hafey, who's the CEO over there, for years and years and years. And we did this under the umbrella of NEHSCO. And I know your next question is going to be, Jean, what's NEHSCO? So NEHSCO stands for the New England Human Services Collaborative. And there's a great little story here, which was in the middle of COVID, when we were all sort of locked out and in our houses and Zooming. I had a conversation with a colleague, Chris Tuttle, who is the CEO of Bridgewell. And we both were sort of complaining gently about the fact that COVID had sort of, like, everything, the shutdown really kind of shut everything down. And we were very worried that the population of people who we support was getting even harder to access services and supports because nothing was open. And that the bureaucracy of state government, which was doing its best, was moving really, really slowly because they had so many competing priorities. And that we were worried that people were going to really sort of fall through the cracks because there were too many doors of entry into the system. And we were worried that organizations weren't doing a good job of talking to each other. So we hatched this brainchild of, can we create a partnership, an affiliation that allows organizations to come under one umbrella, and then sort of pool our resources to make sure that services and supports are more readily available to folks. And we spent a year working on this, and we birthed the New England Human Services Collaborative with Bridgewell and Encompass being the founding members. And our goal is to create a network of provider agencies that are affiliated. So we're not managing each other, we're not merged, but we're affiliated. And what we're trying to do is create systems by which these organizations can be joined and talk to each other and share resources. And we do that through a shared resources agreement. And we've started with IT, some training, some purchasing, that then the ultimate goal is, once we get large enough, is it frees us up to be more focused on the sharing of those resources, so that we can be more focused on the services and supports, all those things that I just described to you that Encompass is doing. And at the same time, create pathways where families and individuals who are seeking services come into this one network and then are connected to the rest of the network. Pretty
really
seamlessly.
exciting.
So we're really excited. It's a great concept. It's got a lot of energy and enthusiasm behind it. And we now have a lot of partners who are starting to come and talk to us. And so we have different levels of affiliation. Mary is what we call, or the Arc of Opportunity, I should say, is an indirect affiliate, because they're indirectly affiliated to NEHSCO through us.
Yeah.
And we will be able to support each other in terms of some of our training. Obviously, as you know, recruitment and workforce issues are endemic across all industries, especially hard with us, because the work that we do is
hard.
It's physical.
Yeah.
It's face to face. You can't do what we do remotely. So we have some very unique challenges in terms of recruitment. So doing some stuff around recruitment, training, retention activities, those kinds of things. So we're starting to put some structure around the affiliation. So we're super excited, and we're really glad to
Congratulations. I'm sure that was a mammoth idea, and to kind of have to work through all the intricacies, and
it gives us some stability that we didn't have before. But yes, you're right. It was a monumental effort in terms of, I learned a lot about legal processes and guidelines that one needs to put in place to make these things happen. There's lots of documents that have to be signed, but in the long run, ultimately, I think the services and supports that we're offering to our individuals are going to be strengthened by having the resources of multiple organizations literally at our fingertips to support those individuals. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So you're CMO, Dan Esdale, who sits on my board. I have all your questions, Dan. Just want to make sure I covered everything, because I'm actually learning a ton about your organization right now. So I really appreciate this. So the region's business community, we kind of talked a little bit about that, engaging with your work. Is there anything you want to expand upon that?
I think that the only thing that I would add, and this is maybe sort of more my perspective, having done this work in the nonprofit arena for as long as I have, the challenges that we faced over the last 3 years with COVID absolutely mirror what the for-profit business side of the world has faced.
Yep.
And I think in some ways we had to be even more nimble and more responsive because of the pressures that were being brought on us, both because we were being funded by a government source that said, hey, this is how you need to respond to COVID. But at the same time, we also had to make sure that we were pushing out really good quality services to the people that we support. So I think it strains and taxes organizations to go through those kinds of really systemic impacts, such as COVID. And obviously we've learned a lot. But I think from my, the thing that I would maybe share with your chamber audience is that nonprofit organizations have to be as nimble and as creative and as thoughtful about where we're going and what our future is, and sort of the vision that we have for ourselves, as our for-profit colleagues do as well. And that there's
Absolutely.
oftentimes, I think we can learn from each other as we move forward in this, which is why I'm glad that Dan is part of the chamber and is on the board, because I think he represents that perspective of this is how we do it on the
Absolutely.
non-for-profit
Yep.
side, and it actually lines up perfectly with sort of the general ideas. And it's great. I have a wonderful board chair, Tim Allen, and Tim always says to me, Jean, no margin, no mission. And then I look at him and I go, Tim, no mission, no margin. The two are integrally
Yes.
connected. And the challenges for us in terms of making sure that we're fiscally sound and stable as an organization is really important, because it's not my bottom. It's not the bottom line that we're beholden to. It's all of those individuals who I just described to you, who attend our day programs and
Yeah.
who live in our group homes and who receive supports, whether it's through family supports or community services. So for us, that's our motivation, is making sure that we're going to be there for them both now and well into the future.
Thank you for saying that. And I mean, even since, so I've been at the chamber, it'll be 12 years next month, and seeing, and I sit on many nonprofit boards, and seeing how nonprofits, even 12 years ago, how different the mindset is, and how nonprofits have to act like businesses.
Yep.
That's just how, and that businesses can learn from nonprofits, because nonprofits are so nimble and creative and always thinking of different ideas and how to do things with less, whereas some for-profits will kind of have the resources to kind of throw
Yep.
money at something, and nonprofits say, hey, no, we're going to take a step back. Let's see how we can creatively think about
Yep.
this.
Yep.
So there is a ton that each can learn from one another.
Yep.
And that's why I encourage anybody who's watching or listening who isn't involved in a nonprofit, whether it be by sitting on a board or volunteering, you can get so much out of that and giving back to the community
Yeah.
for a cause that you care about.
Exactly.
And there's no lack of them in Lowell and in Greater Lowell. And so before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about our Distinguished Young Professional Awards. So those are happening in June, and you have so many great Encompass Care champions. And your new CEO, Kelly Tricket, is getting an award. She's going to be one of our Distinguished Young Professionals. Let's talk about Kelly for a minute.
God, I love that woman. She's amazing.
When I said her name, you lit up.
Yeah. So, every so often, you as a CEO, you find that there's somebody sort of within your orbit who just sort of radiates energy and enthusiasm and just sort of thinks the right way and says the right things and does the right things. And Kelly's definitely one of those people for us at Encompass. So she's been with us. It's a little over 4 years. She was, before she was Chief Operating Officer, she was our Director of Family and Community Services, and really did a lot to sort of change and turn that department around and sort of put a new face on it, and to connect to families in a way that we hadn't really been connected as well. So she's the quintessential young professional, and I don't know how she does it, except I'll be honest with you. I do see like there's occasionally sort of like these glimpses of I at one point in time I was doing that. So she's got 2 little kids at home.
A 1 and 2 year
A
old?
1 and 2 year old, which I never had. There was 4 years between mine, so I don't know how she's doing that. She lives a good 40 minutes from, so it's not like she can just jump out and jump back in. So, she has to be thoughtful, and because that, I said to her, there's no such thing as work-life balance. There are times when you're a mom and a wife, and there's times when you're chief operating officer. And I think finding that balance for her has been, it's been easy, or she makes it look easy. She's also in school, getting her master's degree. And she's the chief operating officer of this, $30 million nonprofit organization that's growing and adding new programs and, recovering from COVID and all of that sort of stuff. She is, I want to say she's an amazing person. It's just she's figured out how to balance it and make it work. And I do think that the young professionals, it's different for them than it was for me. It just is. The world is very different. And yes, there are lots of tools to make our life easier, and we've given ourselves the technology to sort of support that. But there's no magic wand to balance when you need
No.
to be a mom. And there's
Right.
no magic wand when, you're at home on the weekend and you're doing your family stuff and there's a crisis happening in one of our group homes, because we're 24/7, 365 days a year. There's not one day of the year, there's not one moment of the year when Encompass Human Services isn't providing services, and Kelly's responsible for all of that. So
amazing.
it's making sure that you've built the team around you to support you to be the leader that you need to be, and then to impact the organization. So Kelly brings that in spades. She's still learning, she's still growing. I get to see that, and
Yeah,
that's really very
exciting.
cool. The leadership team at Encompass is pretty amazing, and it's been wonderful to sort of see the organization grow, and those people on that team
Yeah.
also grow with the organization. And so Kelly is sort of our right now she's our shining star in terms of being the
great.
example of that. So
Yeah, she came in and gave a tour at the board meeting the other
Yeah.
day, and you and Dan, both of your faces lit
Yeah.
up when you saw
Yeah.
her. I think that, and it was apparent that she loved what she did.
Yeah.
And I think as a young mom, my kids are slightly older, not much older,
Yeah.
but slightly older. And for me, like if I have to try to balance it, or I'm doing something for work and I'm at home, my kids will say sometimes like, I wish you didn't have to do that. And I'll say, I love what I do. Like, don't you want to
Yeah.
grow up someday and love
Yeah.
what you do? So there's a way that, instilling
Yeah.
that in your kids too, that
Absolutely,
work
yeah.
can be something that you love or
Yes.
that you enjoy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what a blessing that is when you're able to do something that you enjoy.
Yep. Because I think that you reflect that back for your kids in terms of, this is something that I'm passionate about. And I think for Kelly, probably for you, probably for me, we were motivated by the successes that we had professionally. And they inspire us to continue to do more. And I think it's important that your kids get to see that, and they get to see that reflected in you. I was super lucky. Both of my kids, who are now grown, well grown, are in this field, and
Wow.
I never
Oh,
once
that's
said to them,
great.
"This is what you should do," but they both sort of fell into it, and they loved it for the same reason that I did, which is the connections that you make to the people are the thing that keeps you in this business. So again, going back to volunteering, offering up your time, skills, and energy, the reward that you get from that it's intrinsic, and I can't tell you what that's going to be. You have to experience it for yourself. But for me and for my kids, which and again, I don't know how that happened. It kind of is amazing that this is the work that they both are doing. They're both sort of motivated by helping other people, and that in and of itself is an incredibly noble thing, no matter where you do it.
Yep.
So again, I am super proud that Kelly's on my team, that we've got the team that we have, and that you guys are going to recognize
Yes,
it. So I think
know
that's
it's gonna be
really
so
cool.
fun.
So
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for
Thank
your support. You're a gold sponsor of that event, so we appreciate your support. This was a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed getting to learn more about Encompass and just all the wonderful work that you're doing in the community.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
is there anything
You're very
else you
welcome.
want the viewers, listeners to know?
I think we covered everything.
Okay, I think so too. Just I always like to give people that opportunity, just so that you don't walk out the door and go, "Oh, there was one more thing." Well, you are welcome to come on anytime.
Thank
so if there's
you.
anything you ever want to talk about, the door is
Terrific.
always open. Thank
Great.
you.
I'll be glad to come back.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in to another, I think, awesome show here on Chamber Chat at the Inside Lowell Studios. We'll be back soon. Thank you.